All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at a pretty dramatic event from the Brahma Purana.
Oh, yeah. Definitely dramatic.
So we're going to be specifically looking at this audio source. We have Brahma Purana 24.mp3. And yeah, get ready for some divine power struggles,
Definitely.
an epic showdown. And really, it's going to leave us with some pretty intriguing questions about, like, what does it really mean to be powerful?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, the Brahma Purana starts us off in a place of complete tranquility, right?
Right. It starts describing Shiva and Parvati on Mount Meru.
Okay.
And they're surrounded by this really interesting mix of beings.
Yeah.
You have gods and sages and even some pretty fearsome creatures.
Yeah. The text even mentions Rakshasas and Pishachas, which are not exactly who you want at your dinner party.
No, not really.
What do you think? What do you make of this diverse crowd all, like, paying homage to Shiva?
Well, I think it's really interesting. On the one hand, it kind of highlights Shiva's universal appeal, right? Like his power transcends these boundaries between different types of beings.
I see.
But then on the other hand, it's almost like a subtle hint at the forces that he's capable of commanding if he needs to.
Oh, okay. I'm already sensing some ominous undertones here.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, where does Daksha fit into all of this?
Well, Daksha is this really powerful Prajapati, right? And he decides to throw this massive yagna, this huge ritual sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
And he invites all the
None of
deities,
the deities except one.
except for Shiva.
Yeah.
And so Parvati, being the observant wife,
Right.
she's the first one to notice that something is off.
Yeah.
Because she's seeing all these gods getting ready to leave for this big event.
Right.
And she questions Shiva about why they haven't been invited.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting Shiva's reaction at first.
What do you mean?
Well, he's almost unfazed by the fact that they've been snubbed.
Yeah, there's a really deep calmness to him in this moment.
Yeah.
He explains to Parvati that he's actually pretty used to being excluded from these types of gatherings. Okay, so what do you think that means? What could that be interpreted as?
Well, it could be that he's just detached from worldly affairs, right? Or maybe he's focused on a higher purpose that these rituals just don't really serve. Or maybe even, it could be strategic.
Strategic.
Like maybe he knows that if he reacts, it's just going to escalate the situation.
Okay.
So he's just choosing to be tolerant.
So it kind of makes you wonder what's going on in his head, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's clearly not just blindly following all the rules.
No.
But at the same time, he doesn't seem to be looking for a fight.
Yeah, exactly.
But then there's Parvati.
Right.
Parvati is not going to let this go.
No, she's not.
Parvati is mad.
Yeah, her anger is really palpable in this moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because it's not just about hurt pride, right?
Okay.
It's this really righteous anger at the disrespect that's being shown to her husband.
I see.
And I think it adds this really human dimension to the story.
Yeah. It does. It shows that even these gods, they still have very human emotions.
Right, exactly.
So, how does Shiva respond to her anger?
Well, he responds in a very calculated but also terrifying way.
Oh.
From his anger, he summons this being called Virabhadra.
Virabhadra.
Yeah, Virabhadra. And this being is so powerful and so fearsome, like the text really just vibrates with his energy.
This sounds intense. So I have to ask, like, why create Virabhadra?
Yeah.
Why not just confront Daksha himself?
That's a great question.
Right.
I think maybe it speaks to how offended Shiva felt. Like this wasn't something he could just handle himself. It required this force that was born directly from his anger.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's more symbolic,
Okay.
Like even the most controlled beings, even someone like Shiva, can unleash just unimaginable power when they're pushed too far.
So Shiva creates Virabhadra and gives him this one mission.
One mission.
To destroy the Yagya.
Exactly.
So how does this all go down?
Well, it goes down pretty dramatically. The Brahma Purana describes this really vivid picture of just pure chaos and destruction.
Oh, wow.
Virabhadra and his companions, they descend upon the Yagna, and it's clear from the start that this is not a normal battle.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like a little bit more than just some party fouls.
Oh yeah, much more.
What are some of the most vivid details?
Well, the text describes sacrificial vessels being shattered, the altars are toppled, offerings are just scattered everywhere.
Wow.
It's a really visceral depiction of divine power unleashed.
So what about the attendees?
Yeah, that's what I find really interesting is how they're described.
Oh, okay.
It's not just fear, it's like utter terror.
Wow.
And keep in mind, these are gods and these are powerful beings, and they're completely overwhelmed.
It really underscores just how powerful Shiva's wrath is.
Exactly.
So what about Daksha?
Yeah.
What happens to him?
Well, we're going to have to find that out after the break.
All right, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Well, the Brahma Purana describes Daksha, once so proud and command.
Right.
He's reduced to this state of like fear and humility.
Yeah.
He finally realizes how serious his actions were, the kind of power that he provoked.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this moment of desperation, he turns to the only one who can help him,
Shiva.
Shiva. And he pleads for mercy.
It's a pretty big turning point in the story, right?
Oh, yeah.
You have this grand yagya that was supposed to show everyone how powerful Daksha is.
Right.
And it ends up being the reason for his downfall.
Yeah. And it really makes you think about the whole idea of sacrifice.
What do you mean?
What does a ritual like this actually mean? Is it really about appeasing the gods?
Okay.
Or is it about trying to show how powerful you are?
I see.
Or maybe it's like a test.
A test.
Yeah, a test of character, Like it reveals who you really are.
That's interesting. It makes you think about the sacrifices that we make in our own lives and what's behind them.
Exactly.
So Daksha is begging for mercy. And Shiva, he just unleashed this incredibly destructive force.
Mm-hmm.
So how does he respond?
Well, this is where we really see just how complex Shiva is.
Okay.
He doesn't boast. He doesn't rub it in Daksha's face.
Right.
Instead, he shows compassion.
Oh, wow.
He stops Virabhadra's rampage, he restores the Yagya, and he even lets Daksha salvage his offerings.
So he basically lets him off the hook.
Pretty much.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable considering how much disrespect Shiva had to deal with.
I know, right?
It's like he's going above and beyond to make sure that the ritual isn't a complete waste.
Yeah, it is.
So why do you think he chooses to forgive Daksha?
I think it shows that Shiva has this wisdom, a wisdom that's bigger than the conflict itself.
Okay.
It's like he understands that true power isn't about getting revenge.
Right.
It's not about punishing people. It's about being in control.
Yeah.
Choosing the higher path, even when you've been wronged.
So it's not just about forgiving Daksha as a person.
Yeah.
It's about restoring balance.
Yeah, exactly. Like restoring balance to the whole situation, to the entire cosmic order.
It's like everything's connected.
It is.
And Shiva's trying to fix that connection.
Right. And it kind of brings us back to that image of Shiva on Mount Meru, remember?
Surrounded by all those different beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests this harmony, this understanding that everything is connected.
And so by showing Daksha mercy, Shiva is also restoring that harmony.
Right.
He's stopping things from getting even more chaotic.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So what does all this mean for us?
Well, I think it makes us consider how we deal with conflict in our own lives. Are we quick to anger? Are we always looking to get even?
Yeah.
Or do we try to understand where the other person is coming from?
I see.
Do we try to find a solution that works for everyone?
It's easy to just get angry and lash out when someone wrongs us.
It is, yeah.
But this story is telling us that there's a better way, a way that leads to more peace.
And it's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about realizing that you always have a choice.
Yeah.
Even when things are really bad, you can choose how you react.
And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is forgive.
Exactly.
This deep dive is definitely making me think.
Yeah, me too.
You always hear about how important forgiveness is.
Right.
But seeing it in a story like this, it really hits home.
Yeah, it does. It leaves you with this question.
What question?
Well, if Shiva, the god of destruction,
Right.
if he can choose to forgive, what does that tell us about what real power is?
Yeah. What does that say about us?
And how can we be more like that?
Could we cultivate that kind of power?
Not through force.
But through understanding and compassion.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really powerful thought.
It is.
And it makes you wonder, maybe real strength isn't about hurting others. Maybe it's about being able to choose a different path.
Right.
A path that leads to healing and peace.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, this has been another amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about the Brahma Purana.
Yeah.
About the power of forgiveness.
Yeah, for sure.
So, listener, as we wrap things up, we'll leave you with this thought.
Okay.
If Shiva, the destroyer, can choose forgiveness, what does that tell us about true strength? And how can we, in our own way, bring that strength into our lives?
Yeah, it's like we think about strength as like dominating and, using force to get what you want.
Right. Like, that's what we usually associate it with.
But this story is like, no, there's a different type of strength.
Yeah. A strength that comes from, like, understanding, restraint, being able to forgive.
It's not an easy thing to do, though.
Oh, absolutely not. Especially when someone has done something so wrong.
It takes real maturity to forgive someone like that.
And self-awareness. You got to be able to look at yourself, too.
It's so tempting to just be angry.
It is.
To want to get back at them.
To make them pay?
Yeah, it feels right,
Yeah, like you deserve it.
Yeah, but this story is telling us there's a better way.
One that doesn't just lead to more anger.
Right, it leads to peace.
Peace for everyone.
Exactly. And think about what happens because Shiva forgives.
Yeah.
Not only does the conflict with Daksha end,
Right.
but it stops things from spiraling out of control.
He basically saves everyone from more chaos.
Yeah. He restores that cosmic order.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is.
Our actions, they don't just affect us.
No, they affect everyone and everything.
We can choose to make things better.
Or worse.
It really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it?
This story isn't just some ancient myth.
No, it's like a mirror.
It shows us what we're like.
We all face things that make us angry, that feel unfair.
But maybe we can learn from Shiva.
Maybe we can choose to understand, to forgive.
And ultimately to heal.
It's a powerful message, especially these days.
Yeah, the world is so divided.
Full of conflict.
Everyone's fighting.
Maybe this story can help us change that.
Find some peace.
Inside and out.
Well, this has been another incredible deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I understand the Brahma Purana on a whole other level now.
Me too.
And forgiveness, it's not what I thought it was.
It's so much deeper.
So much more powerful.
It's transformative.
Listener, we'll leave you with this.
One last thought.
If Shiva, the destroyer, can choose forgiveness, what does that say about true strength?
It really makes you think.
And how can we, in our own lives, find that same strength?
That's the question we should all be asking ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.